They mocked her silence, called her weird. No one knew she had the power to fire all of them, until she finally did. Her name was Elara. She was the quiet intern with oversized glasses and second-hand blazers. She always sat at the corner of the open plan office near the printer that constantly jammed. Nobody ever asked her where she was from. Nobody ever asked what she was working on. She barely spoke, just nodded, took notes, smiled softly, then returned to her keyboard. At Hargrave Consulting, a top-tier strategy firm known for its ruthless work culture and ultra-competitive interns, Elara was a ghost. The other interns, mostly Ivy League grads with loud confidence, barely acknowledged her. "She's like, weirdly quiet," whispered Trina, the one with the platinum LinkedIn and an even shinier ego. "I heard she didn't even go to college," laughed Mark, who once accidentally printed his resume 78 times on the office printer and blamed Elara. But Elara never responded. When someone spilled coffee on her notebook, she simply wiped it and rewrote every line. When they forgot to copy her in the group emails, she stayed late and still delivered the reports. When someone swapped her desk chair with a broken one, she didn't complain. She stood. No one noticed. Except for Thomas, the company's oldest employee. He worked in the basement archives and called himself the Fossil. "You're not invisible to me, Elara," he said one afternoon, handing her an original case study from 1996. She smiled. "Thank you. You're the first person who used my name." He winked. "Names are powerful. Never forget that." Elara didn't. She never did. The bullying wasn't loud. It was subtle, strategic. Office-style cruelty wrapped in passive-aggressive politeness. Trina accidentally deleted Elara's research files from the shared drive. Mark claimed credit for a client proposal Elara had written. Someone even replaced her labeled lunch with a half-eaten slice of bread. It wasn't enough to get anyone fired, but enough to make her feel smaller. And smaller, every day. Then came the big meeting. Client Athertech, a billion-dollar tech company looking to pivot markets. Every intern team was to pitch their ideas. Best concept would go to the CEO. Trina's team had flashy slides. Mark's group wore matching suits. Elara, she presented alone. No graphics, no fake enthusiasm, just a whiteboard. She calmly outlined a complete market realignment plan, based on data no one else had even considered. She cited customer psychology, overlooked consumer bases, and hidden growth trends. Her tone was calm, her hands steady. The room was silent. Even the senior consultant, Madeline Chow, arched a brow. "Who gave you access to these internal numbers?" Elara blinked. "No one. I just read every quarterly report since 2002. They're in the archives." Mark snorted. "Wait, you've been reading printouts in the basement?" Thomas smiled quietly from the hallway. "Interesting," Kao said, closing her notebook. "I'll take it under review." Later that day, Elara returned to her desk. Her computer was unplugged, her chair missing again. And on her screen, someone had stuck a neon pink note. "Know your place." That night, Elara didn't go home. She stayed in the empty office, lit only by the glow of the vending machine. She sat on the floor near the printer, the same spot she sat every day. Except now she held a letter in her hand. It had no logo, no return address, just thick parchment and a golden wax seal. Inside, one line, "You've seen enough, it's time." Elara folded it carefully and placed it in her bag. The next morning, the company was in chaos. Every executive had received an urgent calendar invite. Private shareholder emergency meeting, 10 a.m., boardroom 1. No one knew who scheduled it. By 10:05, everyone was seated. Even Mr. Gresham, the firm's elusive CEO, joined via video call. No one had ever seen him in person. Rumors said he lived on an island somewhere near Iceland. Silence. Then the doors opened. Elara walked in. No intern badge, no blazer. She wore all black. She placed a thick folder on the table and looked each board member in the eye. And then she spoke, clearly for the first time anyone had heard her. "My name is Elara D. Hargrave, daughter of Dominic Hargrave, co-founder and majority shareholder of this company. As of this morning, I've exercised voting rights on behalf of my father's silent shares. Effective immediately, I am the new chair of the board." Gasps. Silence. Trina dropped her pen. Mark swallowed hard, and from the corner of the hallway, Thomas smiled. Because names are powerful. Elara's words didn't echo, they detonated. In a single sentence, she rewrote the office's entire hierarchy. The board sat frozen. No one moved, no one blinked. Mr. Gresham, still on the video call, adjusted his glasses. Elara, is this some sort of test, dramatization? She slid a document across the table, an official proxy form with sealed legal authorization, signed, dated, stamped. No, Mr. Gresham, she said calmly. This is reality catching up with you. One of the directors, Veronica Kim, looked ill. But we thought Dominic Hargrave relinquished his voting power. He did, Elara said. 12 years ago, right after my mother died. Gasps. Mark stood up. This is a prank, right? You've been mopping and fetching coffee. Elara looked at him. No anger, no emotion, just steady. You mocked my silence, Mark, not my intelligence. Then she turned to the screen. Effective immediately, the following changes are to be enacted. Departmental reviews will begin tomorrow. HR compliance audits in 48 hours, and all intern evaluations are nullified. Trina paled. You can't do this, she burst out. Elara simply raised one eyebrow. Mr. Gresham cleared his throat. Let her continue. And so she did. Word spread like wildfire. By noon, whispers flooded the hallways. Elara Hargrave. The intern is the boss. She owns the building. Some employees panicked, others packed their desks, but most just stared at her differently now. Elara walked through the open space slowly. Not with arrogance, but with purpose. Her heels echoed on the marble. The same floor where her lunch was once thrown. The same hallway where she once cried in the restroom alone. She passed Trina's desk. Trina didn't look up. Elara, she said without turning. I didn't know. If I did, you'd have treated me better? Elara said, stopping. Trina finally met her eyes. I would have respected you. Then you never understood respect at all, Elara said and walked away. She descended to the archives, the basement, where no executives ever visited. There, Thomas was waiting, holding a dusty box. This is yours, he said with a smile. Your father wanted you to have it the day you took over. Inside, a leather journal, worn at the edges, a photograph, her, as a child on his lap at a board meeting, and a hand-drawn flowchart titled Hargrave 2030, Elara's Vision. She sat on the floor, knees folded, and wept silently. Not because she had won, but because she finally stepped into what was already hers. 48 hours later, the HR audit began. Trina was the first to be called in. Then Mark. Then the others. Elara didn't sit in those meetings. She didn't need to. She trusted her team. Newly appointed HR Director Celia Monroe, someone who had once been fired for over-advocating for interns, now reinstated. Each report came back the same. Favoritism, harassment, culture of intimidation. Elara didn't fire anyone on the spot. She gave them all something worse, an option. Resign quietly, undergo a full reevaluation under the company's new zero-tolerance policy. Most chose the first. Mark tried to charm his way back in. We could make a great team now, you and me. Elara looked him in the eye. You taught me something important, Mark. He smiled. She continued, that a title doesn't make a leader, but the way someone treats the quietest person in the room, that reveals everything. Then she walked away. Later that evening, Thomas found her in the rooftop garden, an old space once abandoned, now cleaned and full of light. You're not angry, he said gently. No, Elara replied. I'm just done being small for the comfort of others. He nodded. That's real power, Elara. Quiet, steady, unapologetic. She looked out at the skyline, and for the first time in years, she breathed freely. Monday morning. The office elevator doors opened to a strange sight. Reporters. Not paparazzi, not tabloid trash. Real journalists, business analysts, economic columnists, the Wall Street Ledger, Financial Focus, Women in Power Weekly. They weren't there for Gresham, they were there for her. Elara Hargrave, visionary or vengeance. Silent intern becomes CEO overnight, the billion-dollar daughter who changed the game. She wasn't seeking attention, but the story had escaped the building. In the boardroom, Mr. Gresham looked exhausted. Elara, this media frenzy, it's not helping the stock. She met his gaze. I never asked for fame, she said, but I won't apologize for the truth getting out. That afternoon, she was approached by an intern named Leo. Small, nervous, always in oversized suits. Miss Hargrave, he stammered. I just wanted to say thank you. For what, she asked. For proving that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Elara smiled. It never did. People just assumed it. Elara finally visited her father's old office, room 49B, sealed since his stroke. Inside, nothing had changed. A globe, a cigar box, a framed letter from Warren Buffett, and on the desk, an envelope. Her name. Inside was a handwritten note. My voice built this company. Yours will transform it. She sat in his chair. It didn't feel victorious. It felt full circle. Later that week, she announced the Hargrave Fellowship, a fully funded internship for underrepresented students, complete with mentorship, housing, and guaranteed job placement. Trina watched the live stream from home, no longer employed. Mark? He'd already removed Hargrave Intern from his LinkedIn. But Elara, she didn't mention them. Not once. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. They didn't see her late nights reading contracts in the dark. They didn't see her practicing pitches in front of cracked mirrors. They didn't see the nights she went home crying, doubting herself, hearing her mother's voice in the silence. But Thomas saw. He visited her again that Friday. "You did it," he said, holding 2 mugs of tea. "No," Elara said softly, "I'm just getting started." Outside, banners were being hung. Hargrave Annual Gala, first ever female chair to speak. Thomas raised a brow. "Are you ready for the spotlight?" She smiled. "I've been in the shadows long enough." The elevator dinged. A new intern stepped in, a girl with trembling hands, wearing worn shoes. Elara stopped her gently. "What's your name?" "Samira," the girl whispered. "Well, Samira," Elara said, "you're going to do great things here," because someone had finally made space for her. The ballroom shimmered with opulence. Velvet curtains framed 20-foot glass windows overlooking the city skyline. Chandeliers refracted light across tuxedos and silk gowns. Silver trays floated by ungloved hands, offering caviar, wine older than Elara herself, and smiles more plastic than polite. This was Hargrave's annual legacy gala, a tradition born from her father's vision of celebration and charity. But tonight, it was something else. Tonight, for the first time in company history, the keynote speaker was not a white-haired man in a navy suit. It was a woman, a young woman, and not everyone was pleased. Elara stood in her apartment, staring at her reflection. The dress was perfect, sleek black silk, minimalist, with a single diamond clasp at the collar. Her hair was swept back, no frills, no tiara, no pretense. Still, she hesitated. "Are you afraid?" Thomas asked gently from the doorway, sipping tea from her favorite chipped mug. "No," she replied, "not of them." She walked over to the small table where an old photograph sat, her, barely 6 years old, holding a paper Hargrave badge and grinning beside her father. "I'm afraid of becoming what I hated." Thomas smiled. "You haven't. You're building something new." As Elara stepped into the ballroom, silence fell. Not the kind from awe, the kind from confusion, from disbelief. Was she a model? A guest's daughter? A PR stunt? Then she walked to the podium. No escort, no announcement. She was the announcement. The MC cleared his throat awkwardly. "Ladies and gentlemen, Hargrave Industries Chairwoman, Miss Elara Hargrave." Polite claps, uneasy glances. She began. "When I was 12, I attended my first Hargrave Gala in this same room. I wore sneakers under my dress and spilled grape juice on the CEO's shoe. He laughed. Then he told me, 'You'll grow out of this phase.' But I didn't grow out of it. I grew into something else." She paused, her voice calm but cutting. "I grew into silence, into invisibility, into the role they said I was fit for, quiet, compliant, unseen." The crowd was restless. Forks paused midair. But silence is not weakness. Silence listens, learns, waits. And when it finally speaks, people remember. A slow murmur of agreement rippled through the room. "I was your intern, your assistant, your ghost in the hallway. I took your notes, your coffee orders, your mockery. And now," she straightened, "I take full responsibility for the future of this company." Now, the applause was different. Steady, rising, undeniable. "Tonight, I introduced the Hargrave Equity Initiative, a $200 million commitment to mentorship, education, and workplace fairness. We're not just changing policy, we're changing culture." Even those who doubted her, especially those, leaned forward. And then came the final blow. "I do this not to honor my father's legacy, but to outgrow it." Gasp. The statement was radical, honest, unprecedented, and long overdue. As the evening continued, applause came in waves. Handshakes, congratulations. But in the far corner of the ballroom stood a small group of former employees. Trina, a few others who had quietly received invites. Elara's doing. Not to humiliate them, to let them see. Trina Puspi. "Elara, I don't have the right words." "You never did," Elara replied gently. Trina nodded. "But I do have a thank you for not turning into us." Mark didn't approach, just watched. Head lowered. For the first time, Elara didn't feel like confronting him. He already looked defeated. Later that night, Elara returned to the rooftop garden, the one she revived. Thomas stood beside the new interns, Samira, Leo, and a few others. They laughed under the string lights, holding plastic cups and paper plates from the backup buffet Elara insisted they keep. One intern asked her, "What's it like, being the boss?" Elara smiled. "Some days it feels like flying, some days it feels like falling. Most days, it's just making sure no one else feels invisible." The laughter stopped, the wind picked up, and in that moment she felt something deeper than pride: peace. Monday morning again. But this time, Elara wasn't in the elevator. She was in a courtroom. Because not everyone applauded her rise. Derek Mullins, a former executive who had been fired during her restructuring, had filed a lawsuit. Claims of nepotism, hostile leadership, unlawful termination, and most dangerously, he had allies, men in suits, old board members, shareholders who thrived under the old system. Inside the courtroom, Elara sat still, calm, but her stomach churned. The prosecution painted her as emotional, unstable, vindictive. An intern turned tyrant, one article read. Thomas squeezed her hand during recess. "You don't have to win their approval." "No," she whispered, "but I do have to win the truth." Then she did something unexpected. She called Trina as a witness. Gasps echoed. Trina took the stand, visibly nervous, and then she spoke. "I was cruel to her. I mocked her. I led others to do the same. She never retaliated. She just worked harder. And when I was fired, it wasn't revenge, it was a mercy. I'd become the kind of person this company needed to grow beyond." It was raw and real. Next, Elara herself took the stand and delivered a single sentence. "I didn't become powerful to punish you. I became powerful so no one else would suffer like I did." The court was silent. Weeks later, the case was dismissed. The company's public support had soared. But Elara wasn't celebrating with champagne. She was in a small high school gym, giving a talk to underprivileged students. "You're going to hear things," she said, "that you're too shy, too soft, too weird, and maybe you are. So was I. But I didn't change to fit their mold. I changed the mold." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "But what if they never see you?" Elara smiled. "Then you build your own spotlight." Back at the office, her name was now etched in brass on the executive wing's glass wall. Chairwoman Elara Hargrave. But she didn't spend much time there. She was busy, reviewing fellowship applications, meeting interns, hosting empathy training. And every so often, she'd return to the rooftop garden. One afternoon, she stood alone there, wind in her hair, looking over the city. Thomas joined her. "So," he said, "what now?" Elara shrugged. "We grow, we listen, we stay kind, and when they underestimate the next quiet girl," she smiled, "we back her louder than ever."